WNBA's got a real ratings problem. Okay. Um, the ratings came out for the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark game. I saw some people actually trying to spin this as a positive, and I was like, they're light 235,000 viewers.
The WNBA playoffs just delivered a reality check that many people tried to avoid. Empty sections in arenas, television ratings sliding fast, and a league struggling to explain why momentum vanished the moment one superstar stepped away. The data is harsh and impossible to ignore. This conversation goes beyond basketball now. It's about long-term stability. How sustainable can a league really be if it loses nearly half of its audience when a single player is absent? Drop your opinion below. The Indiana Fever look completely different without Caitlin Clark. It's been a difficult stretch, no question. I originally believed Indiana could split the 4 games she missed. That's technically still possible, but it hasn't looked promising. Here we are again. Another day, another WNBA situation that surprised almost no one who has been paying attention. The playoffs arrived, Clark exited, and suddenly the league that celebrated record-breaking numbers is staring at shrinking crowds and ratings falling faster than anyone expected.
The Fever stink without Caitlin Clark. It is rough. It has been a rough stretch. I thought that Indiana would split the 4 games that she was out if she was going to be out 4 games. I guess that's still on the table, but not.
Let's lay out just how dramatic this drop has been. Clark's final playoff appearance against Connecticut attracted nearly 2.54 million viewers as fans tuned in to watch her season conclude. The most watched playoff game after her elimination? Around 929,000 viewers. That's not a minor dip, that's a steep collapse. More than half the audience disappeared within a week. Yet we're told the league doesn't rely on Clark. The contrast is striking. Her playoff debut brought in 1.4 million viewers on a Sunday afternoon while competing directly against NFL games. Meanwhile, when the New York Liberty and Las Vegas Aces, widely considered the league's top contenders, faced off in what many labeled a finals preview, they drew 929,000 viewers in the same time slot, on the same network and the same day. The major difference? No Caitlin Clark. That doesn't look accidental.
The Indiana Fever literally just gave everything they had against the worst team in the league, and they still lost. You still lost. That was probably the best performance you're going to get in this stretch of games without Caitlin Clark down that stretch. I mean, they came back from down 15 points. They went on a 16-0 run.
It becomes even more ironic when you remember how league executives and certain analysts spent the season arguing that Clark was simply benefiting from an already rising league. They claimed fan interest would remain strong no matter who was on the floor because audiences were invested in the sport itself. That narrative feels shaky now. Attendance tells a similar story, despite efforts to frame it differently. During the regular season, teams moved games to larger arenas when Clark came to town. Las Vegas shifted a matchup against Indiana from a 12,000-seat venue to an 18,000-seat arena. Washington followed a similar approach. Multiple franchises upgraded locations specifically because of Clark's drawing power.
Be clear about this. If Caitlin Clark were not in the WNBA, we would not be talking about the WNBA. She is the only ticket draw in the WNBA. A large percentage of all tickets sold in the WNBA are so people can watch Caitlin Clark play basketball. No one cares about Angel Reese. She'd be drawing flies if she were playing not against Caitlin Clark on the court right now. Angel Reese has basically become the Bill Laimbeer to Caitlin Clark's Larry Bird. Essentially, that is where we now are.
Now, without Clark in the playoffs, ticket demand appears noticeably softer. Some postseason games have struggled to fill even 3/4 of standard arenas. The Liberty vs. Aces game at the Barclays Center, promoted as a championship-level showdown, drew roughly 14,000 fans in a building that seats more than 18,000. That's under 80% capacity for a marquee matchup. Another playoff game managed about 8,500 fans in a 20,000-seat venue, barely reaching the halfway mark. What stands out most is how quickly the narrative shifted. The same voices that minimized Clark's impact are now emphasizing year-over-year growth, even as interest clearly declined after her exit. During the regular season, Clark played in 22 of the 26 games that averaged over 1 million viewers. That's not random. It reflects the presence of a player audiences are eager to watch. Yet instead of fully acknowledging that reality, league messaging continues to stress that overall numbers remain improved compared to previous seasons, without clearly addressing how much of that surge was connected to one standout star.
WNBA, they're having troubles with tickets now because I think Caitlin Clark is out for what? How many weeks is she out? She's rolled out for the June 7th game. That's when she was supposed to meet up with Angel Reese again. And Chicago Sky, and there's a massive drop in ticket sales. This is after the...
What makes this entire situation even more ironic is how predictable it was for anyone truly watching. Caitlin Clark's influence wasn't subtle or difficult to calculate. Franchises were restructuring business strategies around her presence. Standard arena capacity suddenly wasn't enough when she visited. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games surged dramatically. Merchandise sales exploded. These weren't small bumps in performance. They were sweeping, transformative shifts. The explanations circulating now sound weak. It's football season. Really? Football was also underway during Clark's playoff appearances, and that didn't stop nearly 2 million viewers from tuning in. Another argument claims other teams simply need time to grow their audiences. Grow them into what exactly? These same teams struggled to generate comparable buzz before Clark arrived. Here's the uncomfortable reality many avoid. The WNBA's record-setting 2024 campaign appeared far more connected to a Caitlin Clark phenomenon than to a broad-based women's basketball renaissance. Attendance data reflects it. Viewership numbers reinforce it. The sharp decline following her elimination strengthens that argument. This isn't about dismissing other players or undermining the league's progress. It's about recognizing what the metrics show. The league averaged around 9,800 fans per regular season game, which sounds impressive until you factor in how heavily Indiana's numbers boosted that average. The Fever averaged over 17,000 at home and drew strong crowds on the road. Remove Clark's games from the equation, and the overall picture shifts considerably. Digital engagement mirrors the same pattern. League social accounts generated nearly 2 billion video views in 2024, more than quadruple the prior year. Much of that viral momentum revolved around Clark's deep shots, creative assists, and highlight performances. Merchandise sales followed suit. League-wide apparel revenue reportedly jumped over 600% compared to the previous season, with Fever jerseys, Iowa throwbacks, and Clark-branded gear leading demand. Now that she's out of the postseason, it remains to be seen how those numbers stabilize. The broader concern centers on sustainability. Expansion initiatives, new media agreements, and facility investments were built on the belief that 2024's surge represented long-term growth. If much of that surge proves to be player-specific rather than league-wide, those projections become far less secure. What makes it more frustrating is how visible Clark's impact was from the beginning. Instead of strategically building around that momentum and creating pathways to replicate it, much of the conversation shifted toward debating whether she merited the spotlight. Players voiced concerns about rookie attention. Commentators questioned the hype. League messaging sometimes felt conflicted about embracing its own breakout moment. Now, without a clear plan to maintain energy after her season ended, the league finds itself explaining why momentum cooled. Rather than launching new storylines or amplifying emerging personalities, it appears to be reacting in real time. The timing compounds the challenge. The NFL is deep into its season, the NBA schedule is underway, and college basketball is accelerating. Competing for audience attention without the league's most visible draw is undeniably tougher. The narrative has also shifted noticeably, from minimizing Clark's influence to acknowledging that numbers would naturally dip without her while emphasizing overall growth. That dual messaging creates confusion. Either her presence was central to the surge or it wasn't. The two arguments can't comfortably coexist. Media commentary has followed a similar path, often framing the downturn as evidence of maturation rather than directly addressing the correlation between her absence and declining engagement. The harder truth is that 2024's record-breaking season appears closely tied to one extraordinary player's popularity. Empty seats, reduced ratings, and softer engagement are measurable outcomes. The bigger question isn't what happened. The data outlines that clearly. The real question is whether the league can transform a player-driven spike into sustainable, long-term momentum that extends beyond any single superstar. Whether the league chooses to learn from this moment or continues insisting everything is fine remains the real question. The numbers suggest something very different. Caitlin Clark's elimination revealed just how closely the WNBA's surge was tied to her individual presence. No matter how it's framed publicly, declining attendance and shrinking ratings speak louder than press statements or carefully worded interviews. For a brief stretch, the league captured lightning in a bottle, and now it's watching that spark fade. When you dig deeper, the downturn looks even more significant. The WNBA recorded 154 sellouts during the 2024 regular season, compared to just 45 the year before. On the surface, that sounds like explosive growth. But a large share of those sellouts involved the Indiana Fever. When Clark wasn't on the court, many arenas returned to noticeably lighter crowds. The international momentum followed a similar pattern. Clark's games attracted global viewership and sparked widespread social media engagement, generating worldwide conversations about women's basketball. Highlights circulated far beyond domestic audiences. Since her exit, that international buzz appears quieter, with coverage shifting toward other sports narratives. There are also ripple effects beyond the league itself. Businesses near WNBA arenas expanded staffing and inventory in anticipation of sustained attendance increases. Restaurants, retailers, parking operators, and vendors all prepared for higher traffic based on 2024's surge. If demand cools, those expectations become harder to justify. Corporate sponsorships raise additional questions. Brands invested heavily during the league's visibility spike, but sponsorship agreements depend on consistent exposure. A sharp drop in viewership inevitably changes those discussions. The timing is particularly challenging for league leadership. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert spent much of the season highlighting record-setting achievements and long-term growth. Those claims are now being examined more critically as post-season metrics fluctuate. What complicates matters further is how Clark's rise was handled during the season. Rather than fully centering marketing strategies around her appeal, much of the public conversation revolved around whether the attention was justified. Debates about rookie focus and media coverage often overshadowed efforts to convert short-term excitement into broader storytelling that elevated the entire league. Social media metrics reinforced the shift. During Clark's appearances, official accounts saw massive interaction spikes. Since her elimination, engagement on playoff content appears more subdued. Online algorithms respond directly to audience interest. Lower clicks and shares usually signal decreased enthusiasm. Merchandise sales show a similar trajectory. Fever jerseys and Clark-branded apparel led the league's retail boom. Sporting goods retailers reported dramatic year-over-year increases in WNBA merchandise, much of it connected to Indiana products. Without her postseason presence, maintaining that pace may prove difficult. Broader business decisions now face scrutiny. The league's reported $2.2 billion media rights agreement was negotiated amid record viewership momentum. Expansion plans, including new franchises in markets like Portland, were announced during the same surge. If a significant portion of that growth was tied to one transcendent player rather than evenly distributed league interest, long-term projections may need adjustment. Comparisons to other sports amplify the discussion. When stars like LeBron James entered the NBA or Tiger Woods transformed professional golf, their leagues strategically leveraged that star power to elevate the entire product. The current debate centers on whether the WNBA maximized its opportunity in a similar way. Ultimately, this moment feels like a real-world test of star-driven appeal versus overall league loyalty. During 2024, the WNBA combined Clark's magnetism with arguably its strongest collective talent base to date, and the result was historic growth. Once she exited the playoffs, engagement softened quickly. The bigger question moving forward is sustainability. Can the league convert a player-driven spike into enduring, league-wide momentum? Or will 2024 be remembered primarily as the season defined by one extraordinary figure? The answer will shape the WNBA's next chapter.